Shalom, Yasharallah. This your brother Dawada, coming back at you with this here truth again. First and foremost, I want to give all praise unto Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Rakah Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of great millstone that taught us this truth and that rule well. And salutation and much love for you, Aki, and pushing this truth and sincerity on the four corners of the earth and enduring afflictions to feed and edify the elect. So I want to jump into this here quick lesson, which was inspired by a live we was doing the other day, dealing with being turned into Gentiles, But nevertheless, I wanted to harp in on this here point as far as following the law, statutes, and commandments versus following after these heathens. All right. So we're going to start off here in the book of Deuteronomy chapter 4. I'm going to start at verse 5 and read verse 6. All right. Or 5 through 8. Salah. Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 5. Behold, I have taught you statutes and judgments, even as Yahweh my power commanded me, that you should do so in the land whether you go to possess it. All right. So the Most High gave us what? Law, statutes, and commandments, a way of life, a way of living, how they would say good morals and standards. All right. This is where we would get these things from, a certain type of rulership, more or less to say, like when you're growing up as a child, your parents have certain rules for you. Hey, you can't do this, you can't do that. You can do this, you can do that. You know what I'm saying? As little kids, like, for instance, Jake and Esau. These Edomite kids be cussing their parents out and doing this and doing all that. But Jake, like, and then they wonder why, you see certain kids out the streets and you see these little badass kids, like, obviously there ain't no discipline inside of them. Because why? Their parents didn't, for one, discipline them or give them rules and enforce those rules. All right. Just like you would see another little child, you see kids in the store all bad and running through and tearing everything off the shelves versus another child that's just quiet and walking around or whatever, whatnot, like, oh, surely. Well, let me read the next one. It says, verse 6, keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations, which shall hear all these statutes and say, surely this great nation is wise and understanding people. All right. So going into that, again, like the analogy I was making, it's like you have, you see the kids in the store with their parents, you see the one kid that's running through the damn Walmart, tearing everything off the shelves, crying and screaming and throwing stuff all through the store. Like, damn, that's a little badass kid, man. Their parents need to get up on them, versus the other child is just sitting there quiet, and they see the other kid throwing a temper tantrum or whatever, whatnot. They just quiet, sitting there, whatever, whatnot, following their parents or whatever, whatnot, like, damn, surely this here child was raised up good. This is a good child, Verse 7, for what nation is there so great who have the Most High so nigh unto them, as Yahweh our power is in all things that we call upon him for? And what nation is so great that have statutes and judgments so righteous as all this law which I set before you this day? All right. So again, going into what the Most High gave us, which was these law, statutes, and commandments, a way of life, a way of living. All right. People were supposed to look at us and say, hey, look, how do I say? Well, let me grab another precept because it's going to say like the opposite of that. Was it 31, I think? Right here. Deuteronomy 28 and verse 37. And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations, whither Yahweh shall lead thee. All right, so going into this, all right, what happened? Let me read verse 15. All right, Deuteronomy 28 and verse 15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of Yahweh thy power, to observe, to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. All right, so what? The Most High said, look, I'm going to give you law, statutes, commandments, all right, that if you follow after these things, that, basically all the other nations are going to look up to you saying, damn, they got some light. They got, some kind of wisdom inside of them, But nevertheless, we didn't follow after the law, statutes, commandments. So now these curses fell upon us, all right? So then you got Deuteronomy 28 and verse 37. And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations, whether Yahweh shall lead thee. So now this is why people look at us and laugh at us like, man, ain't no niggas gonna be, y'all niggas ain't smart enough for this. Y'all niggas ain't smart enough for that. And truly, when you look at a lot of these things, it's like, because I be thinking about like business and things a lot like that, and I happen to look at Jake that's out here selling drugs and stuff like that. I'm like, actually, these people possess a talent and a trait that a lot of these Fortune 500 companies wish that they had on, on their payroll. They look down on Jake for selling drugs and things like that. But in reality, like, well, like McDonald's and Nike, right? McDonald's, oh hell, just use McDonald's. They got the same shit all the time anyway, right? McDonald's, everybody know about McDonald's, right? But they still spend hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars for commercials, advertisements, and things like this to get you to come in there and buy that, right? And now their product is legal. They can legally advertise hamburgers, cheeseburgers, and shit like that. But your drug dealers, they on the so-called black market. They can't go and put up a commercial and say, hey man, I got some cocaine. I got some, put it on the TV, on the radio, and whatever, whatnot, so on and so forth. Put their number up and everywhere. Hey, but these people, they still market and advertise under the radar from the police, the Jack Boys. Not saying it's all perfect, obviously you ain't supposed to be doing this or nothing like that. But nevertheless, saying that to say this here, how people say it with the an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword. People look at us like we ain't really nothing. But I'm like, wait a minute. Y'all have your marketing and advertisement people who go to school for all this versus Jake in the hood. Only if they would change their product up, they would actually be somewhere else better off. But when you look at it like this, they becoming a proverb and a byword. Like, y'all niggas ain't even smart enough to change your product up. You over here selling this illegal shit, taking this big ass risk where if you used to put that same might that you do behind selling cocaine, behind selling t-shirts or socks or anything else, you'd be way better off. You know what I'm saying? But hey, our people don't have the law, statutes, commandments in them. The 2/3 of our people. This is why people look at them like, oh, y'all niggas ain't nothing but drug dealers. Y'all just do X, Y, and Z, so on and so forth. There's a lot of things that Jake do that you look at and you question them like, man, if y'all just did this with a little bit more wisdom, you'd be somewhere right now, like for instance, Jake will have no damn money, no job, but sit there, go to the car wash or his front yard and detail the shit out of his car. You know what I'm saying? Be looking fresh as hell, but don't have no wisdom. Like, well, look, if you ain't really got no job, but you can detail the shit out of your car, why don't you just get you a detailing business and start detailing the other people's cars on the block? You know what I'm saying? But hey, we don't have no wisdom to think like that because why? We ain't follow after the law, statutes, commandments. All right. But further going into that, you know what I'm saying? As far as, if we didn't want to follow after the law, statutes, commandments, what did we wind up wanting to do? All right. Now, this is an account where we was forced to do these things. All right. But nevertheless, we wound up taking this to a whole nother extreme. It's been perpetuated. You have like one of the brothers spoke on the Willie Lynch letter and things like that, which is all the same thing. It's all this propaganda that Esau is pushing down our throats, and I wound up saying something about this as well, the lost, the law, statutes, commandments is like, well, let me put it the way I said it the other night. When we grow up and go to school, they indoctrinate us with what? Their history, all right? And their forefathers and things like that tell us about, Christopher Columbus, George Washington, and all these people. That's, they say, our forefathers. And what do? We go back and we repeat these things. We say, well, who was George Washington? Oh, that was one of our founding fathers. Like, well, no, he wasn't one of our founding fathers. That was one of our enemies' founding fathers, all right? But then what they wound up doing was indoctrinating us into their things and their philosophies and things, right? So First Maccabees chapter 1 and verse 41. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people, and everyone should leave his laws, all right, their own customs and things like that, his laws, so all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. Yea, many of the Israelites consented to his religion and sacrificed unto idols and profaned the Sabbath. All right, so this is part of us taking that that deal as far as following after these heathen. All right, we wind up sacrificing unto idols. All right, leaving our laws, such as our commandments. All right, and following after their bowing down to their idols and following after their ways. Verse 44: For the king has sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judah that they should follow the strange laws of the land and forbid burnt offering and sacrifice and drink offerings in the temple, that they should profane the Sabbath and the festival days. All right. So just like now we have, the scriptures give us all the things, our people are crying right now over goddamn Halloween. Oh man, we don't get to have no Halloween, no trick or treating. Look like you ain't gonna have no Christmas either. You know what I'm saying? ain't nobody got nothing for Christmas anyway. But hey man, our people are Lord's will, I'll grab that as well too. But our people are pissed off over these holidays right now. They can't have Christmas, no Halloween, none of these so on and so forth holidays that they was used to having, birthday parties and weddings and things like that. Now we was always having weddings and things like that. But nevertheless, our people, they're mad at the fact that they can't have these how you say these our enemies' high holy days or his holidays or whatever, whatnot. You know, they're mad about not being able to keep those, but yet and still you have your own high holy days like the Passover, all right, the Feast of Tabernacles, and so on and so forth. You know, we have plenty of holidays that we should be celebrating, but what we don't. You know, if you try to tell our people, hey man, you got to keep the Passover. Oh man, I can't do this, I can't do that. But then you tell somebody, hey man, don't be celebrating Christmas or Thanksgiving. What you mean? Blah blah blah. It's for the kids. You know, but this is ultimately not only for you yourself and your kids, but your whole nation. All right. Continuing on. Let me read verse 45. And forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice and drink offerings in the temple, that they should profane the Sabbath and the festival days, and pollute the sanctuary and the holy people. So this is what wound up happening to us. This is how we wound up becoming a byword and proverb in the sight of all these nations, instead of being a wise nation with understanding in front of these nations, you know? All right, it says, and pollute the sanctuary of the holy people, and set up altars and groves and chapels of idols. All right, hey, we got just about on any, you go to any hood, right? You got all these different churches all over the neighborhoods, you know? In some places you have, two churches across the street from each other and one church beside one of them other churches, you know? Like you got three churches all in, a rock's throw of each other, you know? It says, and sacrifice swan's flesh and unclean beasts, all right? That they should also leave their children uncircumcised and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanliness and profanation, to the end that they might forget the law and change all the ordinance. All right, so this is part of the reason, as we was going into the other night on a live, that that they want to do these things. And if you notice, this is a tactic that they wind up using, especially Esau, where they'll so-called brainwash the children. All right, and really it comes through the scripture like this as well too, But like in the scripture, they tell you, you're supposed to basically discipline your children, raise them up in the ways of the law, statutes, commandments, and the father will be pleased, But if you don't, then the child, for one, they keep getting out of hand. You're supposed to actually put them to death. But nevertheless, because, for instance, modern days today, you got this little badass child. Let's say you got a 16, 17-year-old son living in the house, 15-year-old son. He want to be a dope boy or a drug dealer, you know what I'm saying? Getting into all kind of little things and everything like that, man. And all of a sudden, something go left or whatever, whatnot. He go put a hit out on somebody. Now they come back to where he live at and shoot up the whole house and wind up killing you, your wife, the rest of your kids because of the wickedness that he's doing, But nevertheless, we were supposed to raise up our children in the ways of these scriptures, all right, so that they will follow after the law, statutes, commandments, and what they would perpetuate that and teach their children that, right? But what Esau wound up doing, as we're gonna read here, but also in other parts in time, you had the Willie Lynch letter, all right, where they had this story about the husband. They would chain him between two different horses and set a fire between his legs. The horses would take off and split the husband in half, and he would hear his screaming as he was dying and everything like that. And the wife and the kids was forced to watch. And Esau would tell our women, look, if you don't control those children, we're gonna do the same thing to them. So the mother, her motherly ways or whatever, whatnot, trying to protect her children, is gonna do whatever she can to protect the children. As far as you see it bleed out today, where there's a lot of Jake parents, grandmothers or whatever, whatnot, to tell their grandsons, hey, look, man, this and that about the so-called white man. When the police pull you over, do this, do that. Don't raise your voice. Hey, blah, blah, blah. Certain ways, because why? It's to keep you so-called in line that Esau won't come down on you with the sword, all right? And what Esau only wants you to be a so-called good Negro. And what's a good Negro? Following after all his ways. And what is his ways to do? All right? Verse 48 again. That they should leave their children uncircumcised and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanliness and profanation, to the end that they might forget the law and change all ordinance. So if you're a good so-called slave to these Edomites, and if you're in order to these Edomites, you're at odds with the Most High, because their whole point is to turn you away from your power, all right? Because they understand that, if you and your power are together, there's nothing that you can't do, all right? But what? They know that they can not to say prolong their time, but, they feel like, hey, Revelation 12 and 12, the woe unto the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil has come down to you, knowing he has but a short time, Salah. And if he has but a short time, he's going to try to do whatever he can do to stay in power, right? So this is why he's trying to keep you asleep. It's just like they got this little saying, something that along the lines, when the cat sleep, like the mice come out and play or something like that. So it would be important for the mice, if they want to keep coming out and playing and doing all the wicked shit that they doing or whatever, whatnot, to keep the cat asleep. Because why? The cat is the lawgiver and the judge, right? And the executioner. He's going to be like, look, y'all running around the house doing all this and that. I'm about to pounce on one of y'all and eat y'all up. That's it for y'all, But nevertheless, now you can keep reading all of this, but nevertheless, let me read down here at the bottom, verse 60. At which time, according to the commandment, they put to death certain women who had caused their children to be circumcised, and they hanged the infants about their necks and rifled their houses and slew them that had circumcised them. Howbeit many Israelites were fully resolved and had confirmed themselves not to eat any unclean thing, wherefore rather to die that they might not be defiled with meats, that they might not profane the holy covenant. So they died, right? So you had some of our people who actually was like, yo, we don't want to go off. We don't want to go against our power, whatever, whatnot. And they were so, they were so rooted into that they just rather to chose death than actually to go off and take the slow death. Because what? You follow after these heathen, you got a slow, miserable death, man. All right. Just like here in America, right? They tell you about healthy things and unhealthy things, right? You know, hey, you don't need to be eating a bunch of junk food or McDonald's and X, Y, and Z and so on and so forth, right? But what? People do all these things and then wind up getting sick or whatever, whatnot, and just bad things start happening unto them, you know, and they wonder why, you know, all these different things are starting to happen. It's like, well, you know, you have an unhealthy diet, you know, so on and so forth, you know. And then some people is like, you know what, I'm gonna just keep eating healthy, you know, my whole time. No, I've never had any of these artificial things or these sweet things. You know, I don't drink sodas or anything like that. I just strictly drink water and no candies or X, Y, and Z because I don't want all these other things to start to happen to me, you know. But nevertheless, hey, this is what our people wind up doing. They wind up following after the ways of these the nations that we were scattered amongst. Let me go and grab that now. This is the book of Ezra, chapter 9. I'm going to pretty much read quite a bit of this. This is Ezra chapter 9. I'm going to start at verse 1. Now, when these things were done, the princes came to me saying, the people of Israel and the priests and the Levites have not separated themselves from the people of the lands. All right. So what? For one, you know, we started getting scattered throughout these different nations, you know, and at this time we scattered throughout the whole world, you know. It says, the people of Israel, the priests and the Levites have not separated themselves from the people of the land, doing according to their abominations, even the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Jebusites, the Ammonites, the Moabites, the Egyptians, and the Amorites. All right. So we was amongst these other nations. And what do we wind up doing? We wind up taking after their law, statutes, and commandments, you know, their ways and certain things, just like we was reading in First Maccabees where they was forcing us to do these things, you know. We get around to these other places and stuff like that, you know. A lot of us just choose to do a lot of these things. Like, for instance, voting here in America, right? Nobody got a gun to your head telling you got to go and vote. You don't go to prison if you don't vote or whatever, whatnot. But what? You have our own people that work for these Edomites in like radio, music, entertainment, sports, or whatever, whatnot. They got these commercials now. It's like, oh, whatever, your voice counts. You have to go out and vote. You have to go out and vote. So what? They're getting our own people, giving them some little bit of money to get them to go and partake into this here system, you know. And really, the voting situation is just a measurement tool of how sleepy people really are. If y'all still believe in this here system, you know. It's just like the movie Wizard of Oz at the very end when Toto exposes the wizard and everything like that, you know. Once they all see who's really behind the curtain, they're like, oh, this shit is all fake anyway, right? But let's say the wizard was to close the curtain back and went back onto the machine, started making more illusions or whatever, whatnot. And he was to see the reaction of Dorothy and them. And they started fearing them again and started believing them again. He's like, oh, I can keep on doing this bullshit. But at the end, they're like, bro, we know you behind the curtain, bro. Like, you don't have to keep pulling the machine on or whatever, whatnot. We know you this little 2-foot dude standing on this stool talking into this microphone, you know? Now, if, you know, the majority of our people was to stand up and be like, yo, we're not voting. We know this whole system is rigged. This is our oppressors. Y'all are Edomites, so on and so forth. Hey, man, the cat would be ultimately out the bag, you know? But it says, verse 3, when I heard this thing, I rent my garment and my mantle. Hold on, I skipped something. Verse 2, for they have taken their daughters for themselves and for their sons, so that the holy seed have mingled themselves with the people of those lands. Yea, the hand of the princes and the rulers have been chief in this trespass, you know? And so what is one of the reasons why the Most High told us not to be dealing with these other nations' women's? All right, you got like King Solomon who wound up doing this as well. He had these concubines, right? But what? We would have to, you know, we would start catching feelings for them or whatever, whatnot. And then we would start following after their ways and their past and things like that. Just like in modern days today, right? You know, let's say all of a sudden, whether you want to date a Israelite woman or you want to date a heathen woman or whatever, whatnot, and you in this here truth, and all of a sudden she start telling you, hey, look, man, if you want to be with me, you got to go to church with me on Sundays, or you got to cut your beard off, or we're gonna go out to have this little pig roast with my family or whatever, whatnot. You got to come out here, whatever, whatnot. At first you keep telling her, nah, I ain't into that. Then she get to the point, well, if you don't want to do this, then I'm leaving you or whatever, whatnot. But you and your feelings, so you want to please your woman. Then what? You start forgetting about the law, statutes, commandments. You start going towards these people, Verse 3. When I heard this thing, I rent my garment and my mantle and plucked off my hair of my head and my beard and sat down astonished. So let me jump down a little bit. Let me go to let me just read it through. Verse 5. At the evening sacrifice, I rose up from my heaviness, and having rent my garment and my mantle, fell upon my knees and spread my hands unto the Lord my power, Yahweh my power, and said, O Most High, I am ashamed and blushed to lift up my face to thee. My power, for our iniquities are increased over our heads, and our trespasses grown up unto the heavens. All right. So right now we so far gone. All right. We're so far mingled into these Gentiles. Some of our people, like the scripture saying in Romans chapter 8, the whole creation groaneth together. 2/3, they inhale in misery too, but they so far gone, they don't even know how to call into the Most High, And one of the things, like First Maccabees 1:41, and we was also going into this on a live stream, following after these religions, Christianity, and so on and so forth, What Jesus say is, anybody can be saved, just believe on me. All your sins can be forgiven. So they over here eating all this pork, shrimps, and crabs, and wondering why they're getting diabetes, and they still crying out to Jesus. Oh, Jesus, but they don't really know how to call unto the Lord, because why? They've transgressed so far. They're going they lost their ways completely, They don't even know how to call in their own power, like it's going to go into verse, I thought it was verse 7. Yeah, it is verse 7. All right. Verse 7 says, the days of our father have we been in great trespass unto this day, and for our iniquities have we, our kings and our priests, have been delivered into the hand of the kings of the land. So we went into captivity, to the sword, to captivity, and to spoil, and to confusion of face, as it is to this day. All right. So, hey, again, like I was just explaining, you got some Israelites. We just talking about all Israelites right now, right? Let's just say the so-called black man. You got some so-called black people that'll look at basically Jake that's in the truth, right? And say, oh, you got a demon religion or whatever, whatnot. Oh, they got two different religions. Y'all are Israelites and we Christians. Like, no, we all Israelites. Y'all just under this, this religion that the so-called white man put on you, and so on and so forth, You calling on to, who you think is your power, God and Jesus, when in reality, God is a title, it really just means power. All right. And Jesus, this is a name that they've made up. They've created this dogma about the scriptures and gave it back to you like, oh, Jesus was born on Christmas. Well, that's not in the scriptures. All right. But nevertheless, this is the things that that Esau is pushing upon our people, giving us the confusion to face. So when we go and we call onto our power, it's just like, for instance, you got this little kid, a bunch of kids at a park, and the parents out there. Now the kid, most children address their parents and their moms and dads as mommy, daddy, right? But now you got a kid, now they know who is who, right? But you got this kid that's going over to somebody else's mama, hey, mommy, mommy, mommy. But like, do I look like your mama? I'm not your mama. Not necessarily in the sense of, a black kid asking a white kid this and, skin color or whatever, whatnot. But you don't really know your own ways, how your people get down, more or less to say, you don't even know what, when people look at us, so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans that look at us as if we're into something strange, they don't realize this is their actual customs. This is their actual power. What kind of God y'all calling? This is actually your God. All right. We talking about Israelites. What kind of stuff y'all into? Like, it's not that what we into. You are actually an Israelite by birth, like this is your blood and your DNA, Let me jump down a little bit more. Let me start at verse 10. And now, O Yahweh, what shall we say after this? For we have forsaken thy commandments. which thou hast commanded by the servants of the prophets, saying, the land unto which you shall go to possess, it is a unclean land with filthiness of the people of the land, with their abominations, which have filled it from one end to another with uncleanliness. All right. So, hey, at this point, we had started going into a land, the Canaanites land. All right. And hey, they was sinful and abominable, whatever, whatnot. So it's like you got this in an apartment, right? And the reason you got the apartment was because the person before you, the apartment complex is all full. The reason you was able to get that apartment was because the person, that apartment that you living in now, they was in there selling meth, selling crack. They had a meth lab and everything. And the rent office people came in and seen all that, so they evicted them. Right now, you want to move in and you want to start opening up operations, and they give you a warning. Look, the last man got kicked out for running a drug operation about this here apartment, and you want to follow out the same path, you're gonna be evicted just like him. All right. Verse 12. Now, therefore, give not your daughters unto their sons, neither take their daughters unto your sons, neither seek their peace or their wealth forever, that you may be strong and eat the good of the land and leave it for an inheritance to your children forever. And so what do we do nowadays? We go into music, media, entertainment, sports. What do we wind up having to do with that? Get on a casting couch, do all their sacrifices, their rituals and things like that. For what? For money and things. All right. We want to be accepted in this society. All right. We do a lot of the things that we normally wouldn't do. You got a lot of these, hell, even with the way these heathens is doing stuff, like they're promoting all these different things, the LGBTQ community and all these different things or whatever, whatnot, and their little different narratives, how they put it in these songs to where they have the youth that believe in these things, and because they don't know no better. They didn't know that the generations before you wasn't doing this type of shit. But they would make you think that if you ain't doing this, that you ain't cool. If you ain't, they have certain things. I'm not going to really repeat it, but they have certain things in certain songs where they'd be like, oh, they're going to eat this, and that, like groceries and stuff. So now, the new wave, if you ain't doing this type of stuff, you ain't cool. Like, well, shit, I'd rather not be cool and not be an abomination than to be doing this here wicked shit like the rest of y'all, because you're not going to follow a multitude to do wickedness just because you know better. All right. But what? These people, you want to follow after these people, fit in with these people. All right. You're going to be just like these people. All right. What's going to happen when the chip come out? Oh, everybody else got the RFID chip, but you going to take it too just to be cool with them? All right. Verse 13, and after all that has come upon us for our evil deeds and for our great trespass, seeing that our power has punished us, lest our iniquities deserve, and have given us such deliverance as this, we should again break the commandments and join in affinity with the people of these abominations. Wouldst thou not be angry with us till thou hast consumed us, that there should be no remnant nor escaping? O Yahweh, power of Israel, thou art righteous, for we remain yet escaped, as it is this day. Behold, we are before thee in our trespasses, for we cannot stand before thee because of this. All right. And so, hey, look, this is how we want to becoming Gentiles and having the confusion of faces, man, where we don't know who our power is, our customs, our high holy days, and all these different things that we had beforehand, man. All right. Now people are out here lost in the sauce. We out here looking and acting just like these heathen. All the things that the heathen do on the lightest level. Look at our women with the blonde hair. You know what I'm saying? And the blue eye contacts and everything like that. Whereas they was reading scriptures, they would see that those are signs of leprosy. All right. Walking around like walking abominations. But yet and still we do these things because why? We forsook the law, statutes, and commandments. All right. We didn't want to follow after the ways of the Lord. But what? We need to turn back into the ways of the Lord. All right. So that we can please the Lord. All right. And stop being punished. How long will you be stricken, O Israel? All right. So Lord's will, this here lesson was edifying unto the elect. Until next time, I say, call halal Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shai, Bahashim Rakak Kodash. Double honor to the apostles and the elders of great millstone that taught us this truth and that rule well. And salutation and much love for you, Aki, and pushing this truth and sincerity on the four corners of the earth and enduring afflictions to feed and edify the elect. Until next time, I say, stay strong. Shalom.